Hello wonderful people and welcome back to the channel. This week saw the release of the third season of The Great, starring Nicholas Hoult and Elle Fanning. And I really enjoyed the show. I think it's funny, I think the actors do a great job, but we have to remember that, like Bridgerton, it's a bit of escapism and, how do I put this politely? Historical accuracy pretty much went out the window. But like I said, that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the show. I really do enjoy it. I think it's actually quite funny. But with that in mind, let's explore the real life of the main character, Catherine II of Russia, and what made her so great. If you're new here, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And as always, if you like this video, leave a like and share it with a friend. Quick disclaimer, I have used several sources which I will leave in the description box down below. So dates may change between the new and the old style calendars because Russia had to be difficult with that, and that's one reason why I don't normally touch Russia, because the dates flip and flop and sources don't tell you what calendar they're using. So if some dates are contradictory to what you think it might have been the fact that I've swapped between the two calendars without realising, but where possible I will try and put both dates, so if you're following one calendar you've got an idea. Catherine was born on the 2nd of May 1729 as Princess Sophie Frederick August von Anhalt-Zerbst in Stettin, Prussia, which is modern-day Poland. Her father, Christian August, was a minor German prince and a general in the Prussian army. Her mother, Princess Joanna Elizabeth, had links to the Russian royal family. Joanna was the sister of Karl August, who had once been engaged to Empress Elizabeth I of Russia prior to her ascending to the throne. Unfortunately, Karl August died unexpectedly in 1727, but Empress Elizabeth kept a fondness for Karl's family long after his death, which extended to his niece, Catherine the Great, who was known as Sophie at the time. I'm going to be referring to Catherine as both Catherine and Sophie throughout, but it is the same person. As a child, Catherine, or Sophie, had the nickname of Fidchen. Little is known about her early life, but Catherine did write an unfinished autobiography that can help us give a bit of an insight about this. Catherine was well educated and had an interest in promoting education and culture. She was also pen pals with Voltaire, who she never met, and she became a patron of the arts, literature and education, and acquired an art collection which now forms the basis of the Hermitage Museum. The Hermitage Museum, which now occupies the Winter Palace, was made up of Catherine's personal art collection. Catherine, or Sophie, first met her future husband Peter when she was 10 and he was 11. It was hate at first sight. Catherine detested his pale complexion and was not impressed with his consumption of alcohol at his age. Catherine would later reflect on this initial meeting, recording that she stayed at one end of the castle and Peter stayed at the other. On the 9th of February 1744, Catherine, or Sophie, travelled to Moscow to meet Empress Elizabeth, and of course, because of her engagement to Sophie's uncle, she was a sentimental choice as a bride. The Empress was enchanted with Sophie and thought that she would be a great match for Peter. The Prussian king, Frederick, also pushed the match as he saw this as a great way to further Prussian interests in the Russian court, despite the fact that Peter had grown up in Prussia and he was a Prussia lover. Sophie began studying Russian Orthodoxy, she abandoned her Lutheran faith, and she was rechristened as Yekaterina, which was anglicised to Catherine, so you don't have to hear my awful pronunciation again. So from now on I shall be referring to Sophie as just purely Catherine. Her husband-to-be was a great disappointment to everyone. He was sickly, mean-spirited and ill-equipped mentally and physically to rule a vast empire like Russia. Catherine and Peter wed at St. Petersburg on the 21st of August 1745. Catherine's father didn't travel to Russia for the wedding. However, I think he died about 2 years later, so it's most likely down to the fact that he had ill health. I don't know for a fact, it's just my speculation. What I do know is that Peter was unable to consummate his marriage to Catherine, and the Empress Elizabeth couldn't quite understand that it was Peter's fault and not Catherine's. But she was desperate to secure the dynasty. When it was clear that the couple wouldn't be able to produce an heir, Elizabeth permitted an affair between Catherine and a handsome Russian officer, Sergei Saltykov. And this seemed to work, as Catherine gave birth to a son named Paul on the 1st of October 1754. Paul was accepted by Peter as his son, but immediately after his birth, Paul was carried off to the Empress. She didn't have any children of her own, and Elizabeth would raise Paul as her child. And I can imagine that Catherine, who is recovering from childbirth, would have been heartbroken at having her baby ripped away from her like that. Now, Paul, like his father, would go on to be a pretty inept ruler, but it makes me wonder, if Catherine had been able to raise Paul herself, would he have turned out any better? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. The Empress Elizabeth died on the 5th of January 1762, and Peter became Emperor Peter III, and Catherine was his Empress consort. The couple moved to the newly constructed Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. At this point, the royal couple hated each other, and Peter, now emperor, was quick to show his love of all things Prussian. When Elizabeth died, Russia was engaged in the 7 Years' War against Prussia. But now that Peter was emperor and could do whatever he wanted, he decided to pull out of the war and allied himself with Frederick II of Prussia. This alliance with Prussia was not advantageous to Russia at all. Peter ordered the proud Imperial Guards to change their green uniforms that had been in place since Peter the Great, in exchange for tight-fitting blue Prussian-style uniforms.
I got a bad feeling about this.
He followed this by imposing new brutal military rules, just like the Prussians. And understandably, the proud Russian guards were angered by this, and they turned their backs on Peter. Peter was also parading his mistress around, something that wasn't really uncommon in royal history, let's be honest. And Mistress Elizabeth was taking precedence over Catherine, and he was preparing to get rid of her. Hatred of Peter grew quickly among all classes, and the country accepted with relief the coup d'etat of Catherine, who disposed her husband on the 9th of July 1762. With the support of the public and the army, Catherine was proclaimed Empress Catherine II of Russia the same day. Peter III died at the age of 34 on the 17th of July 1762.
Coincidence? I think not!
It is widely speculated / known that Catherine had Peter murdered by her lover Orlov and his brother and some henchmen. Catherine II was crowned on September 22nd, 1762, with the tremendous pomp and ceremony at the heart of Russian culture and orthodoxy in the ancient Moscow Kremlin. No other Russian monarch appreciated art and beauty the way Catherine did, and she built marvellous new monuments across Russia, and she transformed St. Petersburg into a truly European city of imperial pretensions. The arts, music and education were patronised by her, and Catherine pumped millions of rubles into the creation of the Hermitage collection, which today is the delight of Russia. Remarriage was out of the question, and why would you when your first husband was such a disaster? So Catherine took on numerous lovers. She spoiled her lovers with high positions and large estates. Even when she lost interest, she pensioned them off with gifts of serfs and money. It has been rumoured that she and her later lover Potemkin were secretly married in the Church of St. Samson in Petersburg. I love the fact that Catherine totally flipped what was expected on its head. Men have been taking mistresses for years, and for women it was a big no-no, and she was like, well, I'm Empress, I'll do it if I want. And I think she has to be commended for this. She dealt with the issue of her affairs head-on and justified it to herself as the need of an autocrat for companionship and diversion. During her reign, she reduced the powers of the clergy, continued to preserve friendly relations with Prussia, France, and Austria, and in 1764 she specified Poland's borders and installed one of her old lovers, Stanislaw August, as the King of Poland, as Stanislaw II of Poland. She helped to establish the Smolny Institute for Noble Maidens, the first state-financed higher education institution for women in Europe that same year. The early 1770s, Catherine was plagued with pretenders. There were 44 during the 18th century in Russia, and 26 of them were during Catherine's reign. Evidence suggests that this was a result of economic problems, and correlations have been drawn between threats of pretenders and the economic standing of serfs and peasants, and increases in taxation. The most infamous pretender was Princess Vladimir, later known as Princess Tarraconova. She was a woman of great beauty, refined manner, and sparkling wit that helped her to charm her way into the salons of the French capital as the Princess Vladimir. She claimed she was the illegitimate daughter of Empress Elizabeth, Peter III's cousin, and legitimate heir to the Russian throne. However, she would eventually be imprisoned in the Peter and Paul fortress in St. Petersburg. 1774 to 1775 saw the Pugachev Rebellion, which gained huge support in Russia's western territories. Catherine sent out the Russian army to squish the rebellion, which they did, but it made her realise her heavy reliance on the nobility to control the country, and instigated a series of reforms giving them greater control over their lands and serf. In 1775, Catherine was approached by the Earl of Dartmouth on the behalf of King George III of Great Britain, who wanted her help in squashing the colonial rebellion in America. He wanted 20,000 Russian troops, but Catherine refused. Catherine and her son Paul had a strained relationship from the start, and from Paul's point of view, it grew to hatred, as he found his mother condescending, and he couldn't get over his mother's involvement in his father's murder, which he believed was more direct than history has proven. Paul never accepted the fact that his father was Sergei Solkytov. From Catherine's point of view, the feeling was mutual. She felt that Paul was foolish and unbalanced. Catherine had planned to bypass Paul and leave the crown to his son and her favourite grandson, Alexander. However, Catherine would die before she could change the line of succession. Catherine the Great died in St. Petersburg on the 17th of November 1796. One source I read said she died from a heart attack, the other said stroke, which caused her to fall into a coma. Either way, she died, and she was buried in a gold coffin at the Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg. She was succeeded by her son Paul. Catherine left a legacy in Russia that can still be seen today, and she was an early endorser of inoculations. She was inoculated against smallpox by British doctor Thomas Dimsdale, which was controversial at the time. She explained her decision, explaining, "My objective through my example to save from death the multitude of my subjects who, not knowing the value of this technique and frightened of it, were left in danger." By 1800, approximately 2 million inoculations were carried out in the Russian Empire. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. But until the next one, have a wonderful day.